Today I'm here to discuss the incident that occurred yesterday at Harry in Wichita. Since this investigation is still in the preliminary stages, the information I'm going to be sharing with you will be that of preliminary information that we've gotten from interviews yesterday with officers as well as some of the witnesses that live or either work within that area. I'm going to try to give you some background exactly how did this situation evolve during the time that it did yesterday. About 10 o'clock, one of our officers was investigating a stalled vehicle at Kellogg and Broadway. As the officer was at that location, an unknown citizen, a male, approached him and told him about a possible stolen vehicle that was in the area of OC and the river. According to the gentleman, he said that the guy is armed with a knife and he may have either a fake or toy gun in his possession there inside that vehicle. Once the officer received that information, the officer contacted dispatcher, notified them of a possible stolen vehicle there again at OC and the river. And the officer also shared the fact that the suspect may be armed with a knife or there again a toy gun or fake gun. As the officers move in the area, they're able to locate a 2004 green GMC truck that was parked there at OC and at Exchange. As the initial officer approaches the vehicle, the driver's making different movements inside of the vehicle, which is strange to the officer. So the officer draws his weapon, and as he draws his weapon, the vehicle is gradually moving forward, and it pulls into a driveway there in the 1700 block of South Exchange. There again, as the officers continue to cautiously approach it, the guy backs out and then decides to speed off. And the vehicle goes southbound on Exchange, and then he makes a left on Funston, and as he's making a left, he's gaining speed. But the officer returns to his vehicle. The second officer that was backing him was one that initially gave pursuit as the vehicle sped southbound on Exchange. The officer continued to follow as best he possibly could because as the officer turned to go east on Funston, the suspect vehicle gained speed. He's accelerating. As he's accelerating, he's moving further and further away from the officer. Needs to say both officers had their emergency equipment on, their lights as well as their siren was all operating. While the one officer continued to try to maintain sight as the suspect's vehicle is speeding eastbound on Funston, the second officer, realizing that he couldn't get into the chase, decided to parallel the vehicle by driving northbound on Palisade. So he's trying to get in front of the vehicle to maybe just deploy stop sticks. What needs to say, as our officer is going eastbound on Funston, he's stopping at the different intersections. I mean, he's giving due diligence to make sure that the intersections are clear, even though there again he's running with his full emergency equipment, overhead light, siren, but still he's giving due diligence at those intersections, whereas the suspect is driving through those intersections without even slowing down or even stopping for safety of other people. As the officer is still on Funston, he could see that the suspect turned north, and he thought maybe it might have been Market, but in reality it was Wichita is what the suspect turned north on and proceeded to go northbound. According to witnesses in the area, they said that the green truck was driving at a high rate of speed, which ties in with the officer's comments that the vehicle was accelerating, moving away from him at that time. Well, as the officer that was originally given pursuit is then turning north from Funston onto Wichita, he could see a large puff of smoke, which indicates there had been a crash. And what had happened was the vehicle there again ran the stop sign there at Harry and Wichita and struck a black vehicle that was driven by the deceased, who's a 38-year-old Hispanic male. The officer did not see the actual traffic collision because there again he was still on Funston because he was driving with due diligence, even though he was operating his emergency vehicle. And so as the officers make their way to the scene of the collision, is when they found there again, the suspect was still inside of the 2004 green GMC. The deceased was inside of a black vehicle. He was pronounced dead there at the scene. We're not releasing his name right now because we still have not made positive identification who he is. And so we still have some tremendous work to do as far as identifying the victim himself. But however, once we're able to determine who the victim is, then we'll provide that information to the media to notify the community. Ironically, when you look at this situation, it comes down to the driver, the suspect. Needless to say, this suspect, this is not the first time that he's ran from the police department, from the Wichita Police Department. On December the 26th of 2012, he was driving a stolen 1985 Corvette, and the officers got into a pursuit with him around Harry and Rock Road on the 26th. And so he tried to get away, and he wound up losing control and ran into a pole. And even then, he jumps out of the vehicle and runs from the officers, but we were able to apprehend him, and he was booked in for that case for DUI, auto theft, evade and elude, as well as the traffic accident. Also, in relationship to the situation yesterday, the truck had a stolen tag that was stolen off of a 1988 Honda that was stolen Monday morning. We were able to recover the stolen Honda in the 3800 block of South Broadway. That Honda was stolen from the 1335 North Wilbur Lane. That's where that Honda was stolen from, like I said, on Monday, the 4th of this month. When you look at this situation, it's important to keep in mind the officers were following up on information they got from an unknown citizen. The unknown citizen also told the officer that this guy may be armed. And so the officers are assessing and processing all of this information as they approach the vehicle there at OC and Exchange. And then the suspect's actions inside of that vehicle gives the impression that he may be reaching for something or something's going on that heightens the officer's concern, safety concern, to the point that the officer pulls his weapon at the time that he's approaching this vehicle. When you look at this situation, it's a tragedy that has affected our community, but it was a tragedy that was precipitated by a suspect that chose not to comply with chose not to cooperate as far as just getting out of his vehicle, talking to the officers, and letting the officers do their investigation. He made the decision to try to elude the officers, which there again, you go back to what happened in December, it gives you the impression he has a habit of doing this. He'd rather run from the officers than be apprehended. And there again, an innocent citizen died because of the driver's actions. The fact that he made those decisions to drive a stolen vehicle, made the decisions to drive at a high rate of speed, made the decision to run the stop signs, thereby killing the 38-year-old gentleman as a result of the crash. The suspect was admitted to the hospital. He did suffer some injuries, so he was taken to the hospital. We did have an officer assigned to him throughout the night. He's currently still in the hospital as of today. Once he's released, he'll be booked into the Sedgwick County Jail on various charges. I can tell you that this investigation is being co-investigated with the Kansas Highway Patrol, the Wichita Police Department. The Sedgwick County DA's office responded to the scene as well, because there again we had a fatality that normally requires that type of response from the DA's office, and the cooperation that we're getting from the Kansas Highway Patrol. So, questions of me?
Are we naming our suspect yet?
No, he has not formally been charged. I can tell you that he's 34 years old. He has a date of birth of 12/27 of 1978. He was booked in back in December, I do believe.
When did he get out?
Pardon me?
When did he get out of jail for that?
That I don't know. I don't know when he got out.
Was the green truck stolen as well?
The green 2004 was stolen. It was stolen last Friday about 6 o'clock in the morning from 4800 West 13th Street. And it had the suspect removed the original tag on it and put the stolen tag from the Honda on the green truck.
Chief, do we know if there's any indication that the suspect was under the influence when he was driving off yesterday, being pursued?
That we do not know. I mean, we're still in the preliminary stages. We still have work to do as far as this investigations. And part of that is the analysis of any type of blood or urine samples that we draw. So we still have work to do yet. This is not over with.
You mentioned the officers saw the smoke in the distance as he was coming up Wichita. About how far away was that?
Well, the officers calculated they were probably anywhere from 2 to 3 blocks behind the pursuing stolen truck at the time. And even some of the witnesses put the range about that as well as far as the distance between the police officer and the stolen vehicle.
You described it, it sounds like a lot happened, but this is a short period of time for these officers from our location at the river, which is only like 8 blocks away from where this accident scene happened. So we're not talking that this was a very long chase at any point or that kind of thing.
How much time elapsed between the time the pursuit began and the collision occurred?
You're talking seconds. I can tell you that the supervisor that was monitoring the radio did ask questions in regards to speed and charges, and within seconds, as the supervisor is saying, discontinue the chase, unbeknownst to the supervisor, the accident had already occurred, because there again, it happened so fast. When you look at the time that the officers contacted the vehicle there at OC and Exchange to the time that the accident occurred, you're talking within a minute or less.
Was there any indication that maybe this driver of the black truck heading what I believe is west on here, did it look like he saw this coming? Because there was no brake. We noticed that there was no like brake marks on the street or anything, or skid marks. Does it look, I mean, this happened pretty quickly as well, it seems.
I think that question may be answered at the end of the investigation, because there again, we still have work to do. And so once we complete the investigation, it's presented to the district attorney's office, they will make the determination on exactly what the charges are in regards to our current suspect. But there again, we're preliminary stages right now.
Witnesses at the scene, or witnesses to the collision, as I recall, indicated the man in the stolen vehicle was turning left onto Harry. Is that consistent with what accident reconstruction folks have found, or was it a T-bone kind of a collision?
Keep in mind, we haven't completed the investigation. I mean, there again, that's why you do an investigation and present a final report to the DA's office, and all of that type of information should be included in that investigation.
Realizing it's in the preliminary stages of the investigation, is there any indication that the officers did anything but follow correct procedure and protocol of the chase?
When you look at the fact that, number one, we were operating with our emergency vehicles, the officers were given due diligence as far as stopping at the intersections. Preliminary indication is that they adhere to the policy. They're given preliminary indications based on what we've been able to determine. It wasn't a situation where we gave due disregard and we just blasted through intersections. The officers were actually slowing down to make sure that that intersection is clear, and that's what we teach them. We teach them to slow down, either stop, and then proceed cautiously through that intersection. And listening to the officers' interview yesterday, that's what they did.
Did you get any kind of a speed estimate that the suspect reached during the course of the pursuit?
Well, it happened so fast, there's no speeds entered within the CAD system, because there again, you're talking less than a minute or so in seconds from the time he accelerated to the time that the accident occurred.
Okay, a couple more questions, then we got to move on.
Next step, what are we, I mean, this is obvious, but can you just describe what will happen next?
But right now, the officers have been returned to duty. Unlike an officer-involved shooting, we did check with the officers. They appear to be doing fine. They're back to duty today. The investigation will be presented to the DA's office for determination. We'll continue to work on the criminal side in relationship to the stolen vehicles that have been involved, the 88 Honda as well as the GMC that the suspect was driving. And so all of that information will be presented to the DA once we complete our investigation.
Chief, so far, I know you're still trying to possibly identify the 38-year-old male victim, but based on thinking he's 38, et cetera, does it appear that he he is from Wichita, or do you know yet?
Well, once we get a chance to determine exactly who he is, then we'll have a better idea if he's from Wichita or not from Wichita. I don't want to speculate right now. That's why we do investigations.